Give me a brief experience with dogs. What have you been doing?
Okay, so starting back in about 2011, I started learning under a mentor, and basically with her great advice, I went on to join the Academy for Dog Trainers. Graduated from that, and so basically I've been running my own dog training behavior consultation business for the last, well, since about 2014, 2012, so somewhere in there. Besides that, I've also taught classes at the Humane Rescue Alliance in Washington, D.C., and I also am I am still the very proud parent of a dog that I lost in November, who was an extremely anxious and sometimes aggressive animal that we had several behavioral issues to work through. So I consider him one of my greatest teachers.
That they are. When you hear a sales pitch for shock collars and prong collars, what is the sales pitch?
Typically, I'm hearing that a dog will not respond to anything but a shock or prong collar, and in the same vein, a dog cannot, basically, a dog needs that in order to learn.
Do these trainers who are selling shock collars and prong collars, do they ever warn about the fallouts or the potential hazards?
No, not that I've heard from clients. In addition to that, it's kind of ironic because a lot of times what clients are using those tools for are the very issues that can worsen with the application or employment of those tools. So it's, in my opinion, particularly important to warn clients that there could be fallout, because the very thing that they came to a trainer to improve could drastically worsen through the process of using those tools.
Well said. What are the fallouts that you've seen from dogs who have been subjected to prong collars and shock collars?
So that's a bit of a long list, unfortunately. I guess the one that I see most commonly is increased anxiety and reactivity. I've certainly had my share of dog reactive dog clients who have, just as I kind of described, their dog reactivity worsened, which makes a lot of sense because they were already either a little anxious or nervous about seeing another dog. And then now when seeing another dog, they're also shocked. So it just heightens the stress significantly, therefore making a dog use everything in their toolbox to keep other dogs at bay from the get-go. The other thing that's particularly concerning and has been seen with some aggression cases is the dog that has suffered under one of those punishment tools becomes more unpredictable. So it becomes the case that the usual body language signals that myself or my client who may not know but could be educated on that topic, typically we would be able to identify those signals and then prepare and or remove the animal from that unpleasant scenario that is creating the stress that would then potentially lead to aggression. So when a dog is shocked or put into pain for displaying any of those signals, they're now suppressed, and a lunge to bite might come out of seemingly nowhere because we weren't able to pick up on those signals. They were tamped down, and the dog, and much like, shaking a can, there's only so much fizz in the can before it's going to explode. And so when we suppress that, it's very much a ticking time bomb as I see it. There's also, I wanted to describe a certain case because it was very painful to see. I had been working, I was doing day training with a dog, And I had come, I would come multiple times a week. And so I came for a session onto the property. I'm going to take the dog out, walk them down the driveway, and then head out into the neighborhood for some training. And as I walked down the driveway, all of a sudden, she was a pit bull. She just smacks the ground like flat out like a pancake, and she looks utterly terrified. She's shaking, and I'm suddenly confused, like where is this coming from? And it was very clear to me that she wasn't going to move forward down the driveway. She was fine moving back toward the house, and in fact almost kind of pulling in that direction. But despite the use of, a trail of treats, gentle coaxing, all of the normal tricks that work for me to motivate a dog to move along with me, she was not having it, and clearly terrified. So I didn't want to push it much further than that. So I obviously brought up the issue to the dog parents and learned that they had an invisible fence, and that the dog had the shock collar on when she had chased after a deer off of the property just the day prior. So direct visual evidence of the effect that had, that we literally could not even walk the dog off of the property because she was sensitive to that boundary. And this, to add to all of that, it wasn't the first time that episode had happened for her. She had chased wildlife off the property in the past. So if we take all of those pieces together, what we're seeing is she gets caught up in the moment and is chasing wildlife and blows through that fence. So at the very time that you want it to work for you, it's not working for you, but you're still going to get all that fallout. You're still going to get an animal that, when they have their senses about them and they're not chasing after a deer or a rabbit or a squirrel, they're suddenly like, wait a second, I can't cross that line. That was horrible last time. So it's really and truly the worst of all worlds in my opinion. And it was anyway, it was a very painful experience to observe. Um I've also had cases along those same lines with the invisible fences where, dogs don't want to enter their yard at all once they've been shocked once from anywhere within that space. So again, the very thing that the invisible fence or the shock collar is supposed to be helping, which is providing a fence so that the dog can enjoy their backyard and the people can enjoy their animals enjoying the backyard, is now completely taken away from them because you can't coax your dog into the backyard to enjoy it in the first place. So completely defeats the purpose. And then the last thing I wanted to say is just that there can also be heightened kind of sensitivity to any kind of physical interaction. So I've had where, just a little more cowering, a little more head ducks, a little more ear pinning back, things that show that they're more wary of what's happening around them. So, like I said, the list is long.
Yeah, unfortunately, everybody who gets asked that question has the same answer. And it's my suspicion that pain trainers come in three stripes. They know all about it and don't care. They don't know anything and they don't care. And they might hate dogs. Like I can't figure for the life of me how you could love dogs and not notice that these things are happening. And, every time I've talked to a client who's been in this position where they've hired a pain trainer and their dog has suffered, I asked them, well, why didn't you just call them up and have them come back and fix it? And they said they wouldn't take my call anymore. They wouldn't return my email. Yeah, because you fucked this dog up and now you don't give a shit. You took the money, you scumbag, and you're just going to go back to the next dog who's going to get hurt. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I have no love for these people at all. They're number one on my shit list.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, it boggles the mind. As I interviewed Annie Phoenix the other day, and she said it boggles the mind that these things are even legal, that people can do this to dogs. But with the empathy army that we have, hopefully we can wipe them out.
Love to.
How much more work is it to go into a session to help a family with their dog once they've been harmed by shock and prong collars?
Actually, another thought entered my mind along those lines. What I do want to say is that just the characteristic of fear as an emotion. So fear is a hardwired emotion, which very often leads to aggression. It's a strong emotion for good reason, because it has kept an animal over generations relatively safe. When they're fearful, they can potentially, with healthy fear, identify dangerous situations and keep themselves safe, and therefore procreate and pass their genes on to the next one. Evolutionarily, we have built animals that are extremely receptive to fear and self-preservation, which naturally. So when I try to come in and create a situation where the dog has now developed a fear, let's just say of children, it is so much harder to create a positive, happy, emotional response to a child after that animal has developed a fear of a child, because everything in them is screaming, this is not safe, turn back now, and or do what you can to keep child at bay. And I'm supposed to be able to say, hey, no, this is the greatest time of your life. Aren't you over the moon joyful about seeing that child? And when you think about like the extremes that you have to go from when you're dealing with unraveling and trying to replace fear with more positive emotions, it really is very extreme. One thing we see a lot of just in human nature, and I've been thinking a lot about lately, is that cognitive dissonance. And so in addition to all of this, it is very hard, understandably, for a dog parent who has followed the advice of a professional who has told them to use punishment to then say that was the wrong thing to do. Because it in some small way causes someone to feel responsible and guilty for potentially hurting their beloved animal. So it's a hard conversation to have, because we all want to do the best. I think everyone that comes to a dog trainer is hoping to improve life for the whole family, the dog and the family. And to then try to explain to them that, what we're doing is, or what has been done has made the problem either worse or very, very difficult to undo, is a very hard conversation for the family to have and accept, which then of course makes progress difficult, because the mindset is just kind of working against it. Like, well, no, maybe what I did was actually helping in some way. Maybe what the professional told me I should do was actually fantastic on some level. And you just have to let go of that and fully embrace the other methods that don't involve strong punishment in order to move up out of that. And it's kind of like a quicksand pulling you down.
Yeah, that's where the pre-conversation before you get the credit card comes in, right? That's where the email that says in, bold letters, this may take a long time to turn around. I am not magic. You are not magic. Dog, like you just gotta like bold, plain English. I'm not fixing your kitchen counter. This isn't about paving over some stuff with wallpaper, like variables, context, right? Fight, flight, freeze, like. And, you sometimes have to give your client a crash course in behavior 101. Like, and I lose thousands of dollars a year happily because I won't work with dogs who are on shock or prong collars or even electronic fences. And I've had a few people kind of beg me like, oh, everybody told me you were the best, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, I am, but you need to let go of the shock collar. You need to instead get rid of like whenever I can circumvent the electronic fence, I can usually get in there because I say, if you build a 300 or 500 square foot chain link thing in your yard, it's a fraction of the cost of spending a couple $1,000s on this containment system that's not a guarantee and is going to probably ruin your dog. right? And if you can get in there with some good sales tactics and some good behavior 101, you can swing people. But every now and then I had a guy who was just, he said, well, she's still reactive but not that bad. I go, yeah, because she's shutting down. Because every time you pop her neck with that prong collar, she's like, okay, I guess I won't, but maybe I will, right? I was like, you have to absolutely give it to me and I'll throw it away and I'll give you a harness, or but you got to be committed to 100% no force, no fear. And this, you're an academy grad and you've been doing it a minute. Like, you got to get people to change their innate responses of, hey, to it's okay, good boy, right? And like, again, I always joke, I'm like, if I can do it, anyone can do it, because I didn't come from a family that was like, are you okay? I came from a family like, shut the fuck up, kid. Like, whoa. So, like, I know the challenges that every dog trainer who's legit goes through, because we all go through the same sorts of battles. And I always joke that my business should be called Human Training for Dogs, but I don't know if people would hire me so readily. I'm not lying to them, I'm a dog trainer, but when they get in there, like I always tell my puppy clients in orientation, the dirty little secret in dog training is it's all about the human. It's got very little to do with your dog. Yeah, we want to know what the dog's doing or not doing and whatever, but you need to focus on your behavior and the environment. If you do that, then you're on the pro level. Because when I'm working with dogs, I'm really focused on me and the environment. I already know, oh yeah, this dog might bark, this dog might do this dog's fidgety, whatever. I got their whole thing together, right? Like, I already know who you are. What I need to do is I need to make sure I'm on point with my mechanics, my timing, and what's going on in the environment. And, right. I also remind my clients too, I say, I'm not here to turn you into a dog trainer. I'm just here to help you get better with your dog. And if you buy in, and you really make a concerted effort and you change, you'll be the best little dog trainer in your community of friends and family, and you'll be able to help them as well. It's funny, like all my assistants, if they haven't gone pro yet, they're still like the best at the family barbecue, right? Like 4 dogs show up and they're like, oh shit, I can't eat right now. I got to go referee these dogs. So, where are we at here? And by the way, thanks for the lighting and the setup. It looks great.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it looks great. What would you like the legislature in New Jersey to know about passing Bill SB 3814 to ban shot collars and prong collars in pet dog training?
We are long overdue for any form of, well, not any form, of course, but we are long overdue for regulation in the dog training industry. As a legislator, I would think that one of your primary concerns is, how are my constituents affected by this bill, obviously, and we have the trainers' interests involved, but really foremost is these families and their dogs. And if they go to someone who calls themselves a professional, when indeed they do not have an education in dog behavior or behavior generally, or dog body language, they can steer you incorrectly and in fact worsen the situation, and you may have invested thousands of dollars in them, and now you have a worse problem or the same problem. To fix that is going to cost you either more money and more time, or is going to be beyond your pocketbook, beyond your schedule. And in that case, it's a worse outcome, obviously, for that dog who is either put in a shelter or worse. On the whole, communities benefit from having professionals do professional tasks and understand what is required of them and what is necessary in order to effectively complete their job, just as it would be with a plumber and a dentist and an electrician. We should all be held to a certain standard and know what we're doing when we accept payment for our services.
Indeed.